I am thy disciple. I have surrendered to you. Instruct me who has taken refuge in thee. He says, I have become your Shishya, disciple. A Shishya, a disciple, is one who submits for correction. A disciple is one who willingly submits himself for correction. Comes with the understanding that there is something that is wrong and it has to be corrected. For correction, he pursues whatever the course of action is. He does that. He is a Shishya. Sikshat, he says, meaning have willingness for correction. A willingness for correction. He is a disciple. There are different categories. The first category. You can call them as onlookers. They keep moving from place to place. They keep moving. Wherever they go, they just stay put as an onlooker. Onlooker means the first category, the lowest category. They are the onlookers. The second category is listeners. They come, they listen, and that's it. The third category is a student. The third category is a student. There is a thirst for knowing. There is a thirst for knowledge. But surrender disciple, no, don't ask. That and all I will not. But there is a genuine thirst to know, a genuine thirst for knowledge, information. That's about all. And then the fourth category is the Shishya. The four categories. The students, the evolution of the Shishya happens like this. A disciple, here Arjuna says, I have become the fourth category. I have reached the disciplehood, the topmost. So tell me, instruct me. Instruct me in the sense, I am ready for. Instruct me means I am willing to. I'm willing to correct. Yes, sir. Sorry? Yes. They are saying it is more of information. I like to know more information. I like to have more knowledge. I like to have more of material. The moment any talk about ego, correcting the ego, what ought to be done to change the personality, that person will switch off. Or if at all he takes in that knowledge, that information also he will take only to go and talk about it to others, not for himself. A Shishya is one who takes it for. A Shishya is one who takes the knowledge for himself. May say for himself, for his correction. Because he has understood two things. What? Where does this come from? Come from a deep understanding of two factors. One is something wrong with me. I need correction, and this is the source that can help me out. These two convictions makes you into a Shishya. Are you able to follow what I am saying? One is, this is the way, there is something wrong with me and I need correction. Number two, this is the source. When this understanding comes, the person willingly submits for correction. Correction means what? Correction means annihilating the ego. A Shishya is one who's constantly alert about not becoming a victim of ego. He's a Shishya. But then he is not sharp enough in evolution to know it for himself. Therefore he goes and surrenders to the teacher and says, please, now I have surrendered to you. Whenever the ego raises the head, give it one, give it one tap. He is a Shishya because he has understood that the ego has to be eliminated, but not alert enough within himself to know it. Are you able to follow what I am saying? He has understood it, but not alert enough within himself to know it. Ego gains a backdoor entry. Ignorance gains a backdoor entry. It doesn't come straight. It doesn't come straight. It always gains a backdoor entry. So that much alertness is required. So the disciple says not to take the risk. So what he does? He willingly submits. What is the submission? For correction. That's why the word Shishya comes from the root Siksha. The Sanskrit word Siksha means correction. If someone from outside constantly forcing you to correct you versus you willingly submitting. Understand the difference. One is you try and forcefully correct the others. It doesn't work. They escape. Another is the person willingly submits for correction. A Shishya is one who has willingly submitted. Able to follow? From the onlook, the category before the onlooker is indulgences. I said there are 4 stages: the onlooker, the listener, the student, the Shishya. The category before the onlookers is complete indulgence in the world. From that they evolve into an onlooker, wandering because of a very superficial, a very surface interest in something higher. That's about it. What is a superficial surface interest? The superficial surface interest on the higher can sustain only for 60 minutes. Supposing if we say there is a class in the morning and then there is another class in the evening. Oh, where another one class, sir? No, for you only next week class, sir. The interest can sustain only for a short period. So superficial it is. From that, you evolve into a listener. From the onlooker to the listener. I'm just using 4 words. So don't worry about the 4 words. There are 4 steps. That's all. Then comes the third. A student. A student is genuinely interested. Shows a genuine interest in learning. That learning is to strengthen that ego. That learning fulfills his ego. The learning satisfies his ego. That's why we call him a student. And then comes the highest is the Shishya. The learning, the learning itself is so satisfying. The very analysis itself is so satisfying. The very intellectual understanding itself is so satisfying. Cannot take it any further. And who's a Shishya? Willingness to get corrected. Out of that willingness to get corrected, he risks everything. A Shishya risks everything. What is the risk? Leave all that is comfortable. Leave all that is known to him. Leave all that is comfortable. Leave all that for the sake of the highest. Then he turns into a Shishya, and that Shishya is capable of receiving the highest. That Shishya is capable of receiving the highest, because there is the thirst. In Shishya, there is a thirst for evolution, because he has a thirst for evolution, because, carefully follow, not that he is frustrated with the world. A Shishya is not a frustrated person with the world, not that he is agitated by the world, not that he is disturbed by the world. A Shishya is one who has understood it's meaningless. It's meaningless. Carefully follow the difference. Again I repeat, a thirst. A Shishya is one who has a thirst. Thirst is not because of he is disturbed by the world. Not that he is running behind the world, some things didn't work, he is agitated, coming back. It's not that. He has found the world useless. He has understood the real worth of it. He has understood the real worth of it. Having known the real worth of it, he leaves the world behind. That's where a Shishya is one who's contented or uninterested as far as the world is concerned, but has this mumukshatva for liberation. He is not agitated by the world, because agitation implies you still have a value. Agitation implies you still have a value. A simple example I'll give you so that you can follow the analysis. One man runs behind money, thinking that money is going to protect him, save him. Another man runs away from money, thinking that money is going to harm him. Are you able to follow what I'm saying? One man runs behind wealth, chasing money, thinking that in that lies his protection. Another man runs away from wealth, thinking that it's very harmful. Both are affected by it. One man thinks there is something in the money that can save him. Another man thinks there is something in the money that can harm him. Who's a Shishya? Who has placed the right value. Because of him having placed the right value, he has no more interest. He has no more interest. So with this understanding, he leaves everything behind, except one thing. What? Except one thing. What is that one thing? That desire for liberation, moksha. Except that. He leaves everything behind. Not out of frustration. Understand the difference. Not out of frustration, out of understanding. When you leave out of understanding, you grow out of it. But then, very few leaves anything out of understanding. What he calls in the letter as rajasic. It's because of the pain that is, because of, if at all the man leaves anything behind, either he leaves it by not knowing the value of it, or it is too painful. It's too painful. The man leaves, throws away things, not knowing the value of it. In the Upanishadic story, he gives that example. One of the examples he gives is, the man goes to the village pond to have his morning rituals done. It's so dark, so he's waiting for the sun to come. So what he does, he found a bag of pebbles. Waiting for the sun to come, what he did, one by one, he was He was throwing it into the pond. Because what do you do when you go there? You take and throw it, enjoy the ripples. You do all that. No. You don't go there, sit and meditate like a Buddha, isn't it? You do it. So the man was doing. As he threw the last pebble, the sun came out. Then he realized what he was throwing was bag of diamonds. What he was throwing was the bag of diamonds. But then he didn't. Now he wants to jump into the pond and retrieve all the diamonds back. Either the man discards something because of ignorance or because it is too painful. A Shishya doesn't belong to this category. He leaves the world behind out of an understanding. What is the understanding? He knows the real worth of it. What is the real worth of it? Don't try to intellectually define it, because you have to say useless. You have to call it as futile, useless. Not that. He knows the right. Having left the world behind, he is ready to risk everything. What is the risk? He leaves all that is comfortable. He leaves all that is known and has the courage to plunge into the unknown. The courage to plunge into the unknown. It's an exploratory nature. It's the nature of exploration. It's the nature of exploration. Exploration is to risk everything into the no. Other thing is to ask for guarantee before you start. I am willing to do everything, sir. Are you sure it will? Sure it will work, no? Or has it worked for anyone in the past? Even before the start, the assurance is that exploratory nature is not there. A Shishya is one who has this exploratory nature. All that Arjuna said is one word. I have become your Shishya. That's all. And 600 verses, 650 verses of knowledge he got. That's why you need to spend some time on this word. Even though he was faking a Shishya. Not that he understood, but still that one word, for that one word he got 650 verses of knowledge. He is ready. What is readiness? To receive. A Shishya has his receptivity high from another angle. Understand it. Shishya means receptivity. Shishya means receptive. What is the receptivity? It's the dry land beaten down by sun. The first rain, how it absorbs. That is the Shishya. All these examples are from various texts. These are examples. The land is beaten down by the sun for 6 months, 7 months, dried completely. The first rain, how it receives, the receptivity, the absorption, the absorption. The ego prevents the receptivity. The ego prevents the receptivity. How the ego prevents it? In 2 ways it prevents. One is the utility. One is the first thing. The receptivity goes when the utility is sought. What is the utility? The utility means at least all my problems will be solved, no? The utility. To that extent, the receptivity comes down. How does it work? When the utility comes in first, after every class, after every piece of knowledge, I keep cross-checking. Are you able to follow? How the utility saps the receptivity, takes away the receptivity. Because as I am receiving knowledge, I am cross-checking. What is the cross-check? Comparison. Is it working, not working? Or why it is not working? Because the utility is fixed first. Shishya doesn't do that. Why? Please understand, it's the law of life. It's the law of life. You understand growth after you have grown. It's the law. That's where it's so difficult. You understand growth after you have grown. In the process of growing, you can never understand that. That's where the Shishya willingly submits to the teacher. Because growth can be understood only after growing. Are you able to follow what I am saying? The utility of education is understood after the true value of education can be understood when? It's like the child asking, what is the use of going to school? You can sit and give a discourse, but that discourse will fall back. It understands the true value when? After it becomes after it gets. Because the law of life is you understand growth after you have grown. So the ignorant person cannot fix a standard for growth, cannot assume this is what growth is and work. But still, where is the motivation come from? Where does the energy come from? From the surrender. Where does the energy come from? Where does the motivation come from? It comes from the surrender. The receptivity goes down because of utility, number one. Second aspect of the ego that takes away the receptivity is I know. Two things, the utility and I know. So you find all masters alternatively keep talking about these two. Either the utility is, either they say don't have utilitarian approach or don't think that I know. A disciple consciously avoids what? Consciously avoids these two. That is the effort. That's the effort. To avoid these two is the effort. And lastly, the disciple readies himself. The guru arrives. The disciple is one who's ready. The guru arrives. When you are not ready, Krishna can be with you. Still you will not receive. Are you able to follow the difference? A disciple is one who readies himself. And the guru, that's what they say. The guru comes knocking at your door. You need not search for him. He comes and knocks at the door. The difficulty is when you are not ready, Krishna himself can come and sit in front of you, still it will not. Still it won't make any difference because the receptivity is not there. The readiness is not there. 50 verses of exhaustion of all that he knows. Now carefully follow. Chapter 1 and another few verses here, 50 verses of Arjuna's monologue, exposing all that he knows, and the conclusion of all that he has, the conclusion of all that known is what? So much of knowledge he spoke about, so much he spoke about, the end result of all that knowing is confusion. The end result of all that knowing is meaningless. Ignorance, collapsed. All knowing led Arjuna to kind of incapacity to action. He become incapacitated to act. Knowledge, all that he knew, instead of motivating him to, instead of giving energy to act, instead of driving him to action, led him to breaking down. Breaking down means incapacity to act. There are two kinds of knowledge. One that inspires, that motivates. Another that just drains you out. The second type is not knowledge at all. It is just, it's a burden. The first one is the true thing. Knowledge, knowledge is that which inspires, which motivates. Knowledge is that which inspires. Knowledge is that which motivates. There is another thing which just exhausted. Then after knowing everything, he got exhausted. Take a simple example. The man goes to school, university, spent 20-25 years of his life acquiring knowledge. Another 15-20 years of adding on to that knowledge in terms of, I don't know, whatever it is, skill or whatever it is. At 45, at 50, Bharat, drained out, completely drained. That's what he's saying. You look at that man's certificate, look at that man's thing. He knows so much, but the knowledge leads to the knowledge. Bhayavaha, he says. Fear. Bhayavaha. Fear means wake up in the morning. Supposing I wake up in the morning, they say, oh my God, Sunday vaniki. Diwali ki next day aadu leave utrukalam. Yeah, why? But then anyway go and say something. And time passed till 8. You got it by. Bhayavaha. The fear of action. Not to a man who is ignorant. Fear of action comes to a man who is who's a so-called expert. Who's a so-called expert. Which he calls as no knowledge, which is only ignorance. A different kind of knowledge. What is a different kind of knowledge? An inspiration. What is an inspiration? Inspiration is that a tireless enthusiasm over action. More you do, more energy you have to do. Don't say want to do. Energy is there. You might end up doing, you might not end up doing. But then, more you do, more the energy. What happened to Arjuna? with all his knowledge, has become incapacitated, then he understood there is something wrong in the way that I have been doing things. He says, I have surrendered to you, tell me what I should. The surrender is complete. When the surrender is complete, he is ready to receive the knowledge. Then each and every word from the master looks. Each and every word from the master is full of life. Today the words fall flat. There is no life because the receptivity is not there. Are you able to follow the difference? The words fall very flat. No life at all in it. Because of what? The receptivity is very, 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 very poor. Very, very low. It means somewhere down the line, either I am satisfied being an onlooker or a listener or a student, but not willing to take that extra step to turn into a Shishya. When we start reading verse number 11 onwards, the attitude of Shishya helps in receiving it. That's why I am spending so much time on this. From verse number 11, he is going to say the ultimate. And why he said the ultimate? Because the receptivity is so high. When the receptivity is high, pushing the highest. After a while it falls back. Having exhausted his surface emotions, Arjuna has surrendered. Yes, Shankar. Ignorance. Fear of action means two things. One is the very effort itself. Second is result. Fear of action arises out of two things. One is the very effort itself. Second is over the result. Why over the result is because there is an action and there is a waiting period for the result to appear. Again I repeat, how life works. First there is an action and then there is a period of waiting. Then comes the fruit. For the coconut to come takes how many years? I don't know. How many years it takes? 10 to 12 years, It takes. For the coconut to start yielding, it takes that much. The fruit that comes out, the longevity of the coconut versus the banana yields in how many years? No, not years, sir. 6 months. That evening it gets. You understand? So the longevity will be wanted, but the waiting period can't be so. As I am doing, as I am planting the seed, I am looking for the fear. Fear is because Fear is because the fruit and the effort. Who is the one who doesn't have fear of action? What quality takes away the fear of action? There is only one quality that takes away the fear of action. What is that quality? One quality, one word. Discourse kurkadingo. Clear? That's nanga. Just give one word. A chance to start another. What quality, a single quality that takes away the fear of action? That person will not have any fear of action. What quality? Knowledge. Huh? Doing itself.
Surrender.
Surrender. Huh? Abundance. Huh? Effortless. See, don't worry, that word will not come. Yeah, that's not. I can't hear. He says something, and if I say, correct, no, sir, please. Again, the fear of action will not be there the moment the quality of sincerity comes into action. Just one quality. What is that quality? That's all. Just this. The sincerity takes away the sincerity takes away the fear. To sincere, you don't need knowledge. To be sincere, what you need? Huh? To be sincere, what you need? To be sincere, what you need? Sincerity. First understand what is sincerity. What is sincerity? What is sincerity?
Conviction.
Huh? Conviction. What is sincerity? Honesty, yeah? What is sincerity? Huh? Faith. Dedication. That's synonym. Dedication, sincerity is synonym. Sincerity comes in to whom? Gratitude. Huh? Sincerity is an effect of inspiration. Follow the link. I was talking about inspiration and then it's not, you need to follow the sequence. Sincerity is to one who is inspired. Sincerity to whom? To the one who is inspired. The man who is inspired, the satisfaction, contentment is in the doing, not what comes out of it. And the very doing itself, he puts his heart and soul into it. That's it. Like the bee stings, he says. Like the bee stings. What is the bee stinging? In that sting, it gives its life away. It stings, it dies. In that sting, it gives its life away. Are you able to follow? Sincerity comes out of inspiration. Energy, enthusiasm, all that. Exactly opposite of that is all the knowledge is there but no energy into action. That is the fundamental analysis, the starting point of analysis. So much of knowledge is there, so much of experience is there, but why no energy into action? Why no energy into action? An inspiration. Inspiration because I am doing this because it ought to be done. Doing this because it ought to be done. A simple example. The mother will be having 103 degrees temperature. She will get up, go into the kitchen, make some, at least she will make some rasam and she will go back to sleep. And that is also she is not making for herself. Where is that energy coming from? Are you able to follow? It ought to be done. Where is that energy coming from? So when she does it, that energy comes. The sincerity comes. The moment fruit comes in, the moment the utility comes in, the moment the result comes in, to that extent, what starts? What starts? Anxiety starts. To that extent, anxiety starts. When anxiety starts, sincerity goes out. When anxiety starts, sincerity goes out. That's the difference. Is it okay? Fear of action. A sincere person will not fear action. Fear of action means wanting to. Fear of action means what? Fear of action means quickly stop it. What is the technique, sir? Whenever people ask what is the right technique of action, it means what? How to quickly get the result so that action can be stopped. Correct? That's not what he is talking about as the knowledge. The knowledge that keeps the more you do, more the energy he says. A Shishya is one who is having all this. But that much of energy, that much of enthusiasm is required to walk the distance. Able to follow? Every step I can't keep cross-checking about whether the result is there or not, but at least I am in the right direction, no? At least tell me I am in the right. And so God only knows whether you are in the right direction or wrong direction. Are you able to follow? Shankar, is it okay? Bharat, is it answered? Huh? Is it answered? Huh? Yes. What is the right value? Yes. What is the right value? Don't say no value. What is the right value? The right value of anything in the world is only one thing. What? What? You project happiness or sorrow out of it. Per se, it doesn't have anything. That's all. Happiness or sorrow that you get out of the world is your projection. Remember those two examples, same common two examples often repeated. The two examples. What are the two examples? Mira. Huh? Correct. Cigarette and the lady. Remember those two examples, oft repeated again and again and again, to a point where you think, where the first example? Why same example? What is the right value? See, you can't say no value. Because no value is what? You are borrowing and saying it from someone else's. Because the moment you say no value, you should not be attracted to it. You should not be affected by it. But then there is an attraction. There is an aversion. So what is right value? The right value for anything is the happiness or sorrow that comes out of anything is your projection. Wealth can save you is your projection. Wealth can harm you is your projection. There is nothing in the wealth that can neither harm you or save you. Is that right? Is that right understand? If you want to call it as no value, you can call it as. But I won't call it as no value because the English word no value means you misunderstand it as zero value. See, for example, that's the problem of lack of reflection. See, whenever we talk about inaction, whenever we talk about inaction, the word inaction gives an implication of no action. So we go on talking about inaction, assuming it as no action. So immediately the next sentence he says is the insignia of life is action. No one can be inactive. Then what is it that is being called as inaction? What is it that is being called as inaction? Are you able to follow what I am saying? See, on the one hand, that's where the English word no value makes you to believe it's zero value. It's not zero value. It's the right value. It's the right value. What is the right value? An understanding that you develop when you see it objectively. That's what it means by saying there is nothing that can save you, there is nothing that can protect you. It is an objective. It's an objective perception. It's an objective see. Inaction, just use these two words. Inaction means we misunderstand inaction as no action. And no action is because immediately it's countered by saying action is the insignia of life. You can't remain inactive even for a split second. Try and sit like a piece of rock, unmoving. Try and sit. Suddenly you will feel like sneezing. Suddenly you feel like one ant crawling. Suddenly you feel like something is eating. Action has to happen. So, what is inaction then? What is inaction then? A bunch of set of useless action. It's inaction. A set of useless action. It is inaction. So either it's a set of bunch of useless actions or actions riddled with anxiety or the right type of action. Able to follow now? So whenever you say no value, you have a linguistic meaning to it. The linguistic meaning that you give to no value is, you understand it as zero value. It's not zero value. It's the right value. It's the right value. What is the right value? What is the right value? There is nothing in it that can cause you happiness or sorrow. Why it's called the right value is because you court something because of the hope of happiness. You run away from something because it's going to give sorrow. That's all. Are you able to follow? You court something because of what? The hope of happiness. It's not actual happiness. It's the hope. Happiness is always it's the hope of happiness, not the actual happiness. Are you able to follow? Now, for a man who's sincere, his understanding about life is so completely different. What?
Nothing inherently wrong with what I offer.
That's all. I do that which I ought to do. I do that which I ought to do. Who fixes that? Who fixes that? You fix it. You fix it upon yourself. You take it upon yourself. You fix it upon yourself. You take it upon yourself. Are you able to follow? Therefore, whenever you say no value, if you can understand it as right value, it's okay to use no value. But then if you use no value to mean zero value or useless, then that's wrong. Then that's entirely wrong. Because out of calling it as no value, out of calling something as useless, I will turn indifferent to that. I will not respect that. When I say something as useless, I will not know how to respect it. I will turn indifferent. Yeah. That's why it's a it's a tightrope walk. You take one quality, you slip through the other. You take that quality, you take that quality, you slip through the Like a slogan, I have kept it for myself. Sincere, not serious. Sincere, not serious. Now the boys asked me, where did you get this? I said, I got this from looking at him. Whatsoever he does it with that. He does. I have seen him, at least for the last 25 years at least. Whatsoever he does it with that sincerity. No one can go anywhere near him matching in that sincerity. At the same time, not serious at all. Not serious at all. But then what happens is, if I say, be sincere, I get so tensed. I get so worried. I get so anxious because the very sincerity itself brings worry and anxiety along with it. Then he says, no, don't be so anxious. Don't bother. Don't be so serious. What goes out? Sincerity goes out. Because I tried both on me. I can't write on others. So I tried both on me. The moment you say sincere, it brings in that much of worry and tension, anxiety, feverishness. Because the very sincerity itself is so draining. Next day I said, okay, why be so serious? Don't be so serious. Do it casually. Yeah. What goes out? Sincerity goes out. So I take up one quality, I miss out on the other. I take up that, I miss out on the other. Somewhere down the line, what will happen? I'll pick up one quality that I like, and I keep pursuing that. Evolution is something completely different. Evolution. A Shishya is one who's completely different. Because a Shishya is one who's interested in evolution. What is evolution? What does evolution mean? The balance. What is the balance? Like I have 4 or 5 things like this. Ella solluman kekadinga. Yes, I say others also na. It's like the girl walking on the string. On the road, they tie 2 poles and then they tie a string and the girl walks. She has the pole and she tilts to the right. See, when she is tilting to the right, she is avoiding falling from the left. You know that? When she is tilting to the right, she is not tilting to the right. She is avoiding falling from the right. Now what happens? She will tilt it so much that she will start. So what she does? She immediately tilts to the left. In that constant balancing this side, that side, this side, that side, the rope is crossed. She is not stationary in the same position. You follow? That's the right value. Either I say it has no value and be indifferent and run away, or it has all the value and I chase it blindfolded. That's where reflection comes and removes the linguistic misunderstanding. The linguistic meaning gives a straight understanding. Reflection takes care of that. Follow? That's why we harp on this reflection. Because when we say no value, we understand it as zero value. When we say inaction, we understand it as no action is impossible. It's a useless action. Useless because doing something, consuming the resources, wasting the energy, the end result of it is what? Nothing. Are you able to follow? Seriya? Is it okay? In that sense. How do you bring sincerity? Now you don't get carried away in this now. Yeah, I just said it as an example of how the mind gets attracted to one and develops a like out of it and just goes behind it. Like you should be sincere. She say that. So there can be so many arguments can be given out, so many explanations can be given on the importance of sincerity, and then the person starts becoming sincere. The person starts becoming sincere. 2 weeks later, the person is so drained out now. So drained out because of what? Completely tilted to the right. Completely tilted to the right. Immediately the balance. What is the balance? Not by becoming less sincere. That's not the balance. Romba sincere, over sincere. Now let me bring my sincerity down. Because over sincere. It is not bringing the sincerity down. It is retaining the sincerity and taking away the seriousness. See, again, it's a linguistic problem. Again, we say, okay, what? Over sincere, so bring down what? Sincerity itself. Somewhere, whatever direction we go, we know how to conclude wrongly. We know how to analyze correctly and conclude wrongly. Wonderful is that intellect, where analysis is done correctly and conclusions are wrong. It means what? Somewhere down the line, the analysis itself is wrong. The analysis itself is wrong. Is it okay? Sincerity is to an inspired person. A disciple looks at the master, so inspired, comes from that. As far as in this context of the Sishya, Where does it come from? He strives. He's striving for that. He's striving for that. What is he striving for? That which he does effortlessly, I try it with effort. That which he is doing effortlessly, initially I try it with effort. Are you able to understand the difference? It sits so effortless on him, on the master, on the teacher, on the enlightened, versus with effort. A Shishya is one who strives with effort. Because the mind is pulling him back. Not that he is enlightened. The mind is still pulling him back. The mind still has its own doubts. It pulls back because of its doubts. The mind still has its own doubts. The mind still has its own notions. Either it is doubting or it goes by its own notion. Sincerity comes through inspiration. Inspiration gives you the energy to go through the process of knowledge, reflection, so that it can become yours at some point of time. Again, it is the inspiration. That inspiration is the energy for you to go through the process of study, reflection. The tapas ends up in growth. Straight away knowledge doesn't come. That's where as a Shishya, the starting point is an inspiration. That inspiration gives energy. Inspiration means enthusiasm and energy. Yes, Bharat. Mumukshatva. Mumukshatva is, what is the technical definition of mumukshatva? Is the burning desire for liberation. A burning desire for liberation. The burning desire for liberation arises from a deep suffocation of bondage. Two steps. The burning desire for liberation. Mumukshatva is defined as the thirst for liberation. Where the example of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. It's like the man's head pushed inside water. The man's head is pushed inside water. He is ready to do anything to get that, to just come out. That burning desire for liberation. You cannot directly have a desire for liberation. You can experience the suffocation of bondage first. You cannot directly know what liberation is, because it is like trying to understand what growth is before growing. It's not possible. Please tell us what liberation is. No, therefore we can try for that, pursue that. It doesn't work like that. So, mumukshatva, the burning desire for liberation, comes from where? Comes from the suffocation of bondage. That's where you find all Shastras talks about bondage more. When it comes to God, when it comes to liberation, they say, experience it and know it by yourself. But what you need to understand is bondage. More you understand bondage, more there is a suffocation, a pain. Just as the value of medicine is dependent upon not the knowledge of medicine. The value of the medicine is dependent upon the knowledge of the disease. More you understand the disease, more valuable the medicine is. Mumukshatva. The third way. I'm just giving three different examples to convey one aspect of what mumukshatva is. The third. This is Ramatirtha. He gives this example. The boy is selling water, glass of water. Where there was no water in the trains, where there was no bottled water available, every station the boy comes and sells water, a glass of water. So in one of the stations, the train has stopped and the boy is selling 15 paisa for a glass of water. 15 paisa for a glass of water. One man stops him and says, "Nafar, buro costly rakira. Keep it 10. The boy says, "You are not thirsty," and goes to the next customer. The boy looks at him and says, "You are not thirsty," and goes to the next. Because when you are thirsty, 10 or 15 doesn't make any difference. Now when he is bargaining, it means what? The thirst is not, thirst is not there. Thirst is not thirsty enough, I don't know what it is. It's not enough for him to plunge. That is mumukshatva. That is mumukshatva. The suffocation experienced through bondage. The suffocation of bondage. And what is bondage? Bondage is a false arrogation. Bondage is a false arrogation. That which is not mine, that which can never be mine, I call it as mine. That's bondage. Two things. That's bondage is a false arrogation. What is a false arrogation? That which is not mine. Okay, today it is not mine, sir, but if I put more effort and if I do all the right things, tomorrow it will be mine, no? That which is not yours, that which can never be yours, you call it as a false arrogation. That's bondage. A false arrogation, that is bondage. The second definition of bondage. Ignorance. Ignorance. The mother of all evils. The root of all evils is ignorance. The mother of all evil. The root of all evil is ignorance. That's why he says, first get rid of the ignorance first. Because ignorance is bondage. Ignorance is bondage. That's why the prayer is Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. The Gayatri mantra is asking for light. He is asking for light. He is praying for light because he is in darkness. He is in darkness and he wants to move out of that darkness. That's where the prayer. They say Gayatri mantra is the mother of all. The mother of all mantras is Gayatri. Why? Because in Gayatri is only asking for light. In all other mantras you ask for health, you ask for wealth, you ask for knee pain to go, stomach ache to go, bank balance to increase. In which mantra you are asking for light to come? What is the prayer? Which is the prayer in which you are asking for light? And yet they say this is the mother of all mantras. What is the mother of all mantras? The Gayatri mantra. And what is Gayatri mantra? Dhiyo Yona Prachodaya. That's all it is. Dhi means the Sanskrit word. Dhi means buddhi, intellect. That's why he says, let my intellect shine. Buddhi. Second bondage is ignorance. The first is a false allegation. A false allegation. Second is ignorance. See, today it's very difficult. See, the generation where we have to make an effort to get into darkness nowadays. Previously, for millions of years, effort was made to get into like the physical life. Today we have to make an effort to become, we have to put this curtain, that curtain, this, and then to this society, lights and all become so meaningless. You understand? Imagine that society, we are living in darkness. Everything is waiting for that light to come. And when light is going to come, which is the early morning, which is the Brahma Muhurta time, it's so fresh, it's so energetic, so enthusiastic, because what is going to follow now? Light is going to follow because of long period of darkness, waiting to get out of that darkness. So person is happy in darkness, comfortable in darkness, what to do? Able to follow? This is mumukshatva. Mumukshatva is wanting to eliminate these things. Wanting to eliminate these things. Wanting to eliminate the false allegation. Wanting to eliminate ignorance. The mother of all evil. I'm just repeating. The root of all evils. The mother of all evil is ignorance. Ignorance is darkness. It's where all the sources is always equated to, knowledge is equated to light, ignorance is equated to darkness. The third, mumukshatva is the birth of the divine and the destruction of the evil. That is mumukshatva. The birth of the divine and the destruction of the evil. Okay, understand it like this. All the festivals that we do has what? Only one thing in common, no? Saparda. Yeah. What to cook, what not to cook, in which vessel to cook. Vivekananda said, religion in this country is very easy, he said. Religion in India is very easy because the entire religion is confined to the kitchen, he said. Confined to the kitchen. What to cook, what not to cook. Romba orthodox, in which vessel to cook. Ordinary days we use stainless steel, na religious day you use, I don't know, whatever it is. All the festivals has, either we celebrate the birth of the divine, either we celebrate Ashtami, the birth of the divine, Navami, the birth of the divine, Chaturthi, the birth of divine. But we don't mourn Krishna's death. We don't mourn Rama's death. Where there is mourning in all other things, they mourn. Here we don't mourn at all. Either we celebrate the birth of the divine, or we celebrate the death of evil. Two sides to the same coin. That's where alternatively they spaced the rituals in such a way that either there will be a birth of the divine or the death of. Yeah. Yesterday, so much of noise, headache only came. Yeah, because of the noise, crackers. Death of whom? Death of an asura. Asura symbolizes evil. The death of evil. What is evil? That's why we celebrate it with light, symbolizing knowledge. Because bondage is darkness, ignorance, evil. Mumukshatva. These are all various ways in which they try to infuse mumukshatva. Today, these have become legitimate sources for indulgence. The legitimate days for indulgence is festival days. Ordinary days you don't do, no, on that day you are legitimate. Look, Diwali comes once in a year, sir. Every day you are exercising and wasting time and struggling. At least one day have extra. It's two sides to the same coin. What is two sides to the same coin? The birth of the divine. It's two sides. The flip side of it is, the other side of it is the death of the evil. What is the evil? Ignorance is evil. Ignorance is evil. That's why that boy who is suffocated by ignorance is praying for light. Praying for light. Asatoma sadgamaya tamasoma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya is the prayer. All meaning what? Lead me from darkness to light. And the last thing with reference to knowledge is this. Millions of years of darkness doesn't need millions of years of light. That's the power of light. That's why we worship light. Millions of years of darkness doesn't need millions of years of light. The first matchstick you strike, darkness gone. That's the power of light. That's where light is equated to knowledge. Because when knowledge comes, ignorance, billions of years of light doesn't need a millions of years of darkness, doesn't need millions of years of light. An unexplored cave in darkness for millions of years, to chase the darkness away, you don't need to light it for millions of years. The first matchstick you strike there, it is gone. Darkness is not opposite of light. Darkness is absence of light. That's knowledge. Darkness is not opposite of light. Darkness is just absence of light. That's why they say, just bring in knowledge. Bring in knowledge first. That is enough. Bring in, because it's not opposite. But we have misunderstood it as to be opposite. Is it okay? It's not the opposite of light. Darkness is only ignorance is not opposite of knowledge. Ignorance is only absence of knowledge. In the light of knowledge, see where is ignorance. In the light of knowledge, ignorance disappears, leaving without any trace. It doesn't leave any trace behind. When sunlight comes, no traces of darkness. This is mumukshatva. The understanding. Seriya? Is it okay?